Let's hope this is better.
Yay. Okay, so I'll first introduce what I'm doing. So if anyone's hopping on and you're interested, I decided that it would be a really fun thing to interview people who work in the fine arts, specifically music and, any other arts. I have many friends, and I myself am a musician and work with many musicians. And I wanted to get in touch with Amanda because I know that you have been doing some really cool things with your music. And we actually know each other
Yes.
um, from high school orchestra together.
High school and middle school, like way back in
Yes,
seventh grade.
it's
When
been a long
Larissa was,
time.
yeah, when Larissa was like the clearly the by far the best instrumentalist in the whole orchestra, like very clearly the leader in the group.
Yeah, so Amanda, why don't you introduce yourself and your music and also talk about your career track and how you've navigated that and your music?
Yeah, sure. So to start off, right now I actually live in Berlin, Germany, and I am working in tech as an artificial intelligence architect. But my passion is music all the time, and so what I like to do to engage in it is constantly write and record. And there are different ways I think to share music. One of the mediums that I think is a great way to like practice performance, connect with people through music, is actually playing street music. So living in Europe, every time I go to a new city, I bring either my guitar or my ukulele, and I just play on the streets and see people's reactions. And it really is it's a medium to kind of open up this connection with other people that you don't know. So it's really great to see like how it brings joy to other people, how it might be something that they haven't seen before, but it's really interesting to see which cities are really receptive of this kind of street performance busking, and which cities are not as much. One of the cities that was the most kind of excited and enthralled by street music was Vienna, Austria.
Yeah.
It's a very artistic city. It's the home of
Mhm.
the world's opera, and it's just full of very artistic people who appreciate the fine arts. So it was really great to be able to connect. Sorry, be able to connect and see that um,
That's awesome.
with people that. Yeah. So this is a way that I like kind of practice my performance, but I also like to record albums and also play gigs sometimes at paid gigs on the side sometimes as well, just in terms of playing cover music. But
Mhm.
my heart lies in songwriting and creating new music that hasn't been done before, and specifically addressing topics in music that are commonly overlooked or maybe not really addressed often enough.
Mhm.
So I think this was kind of like an unconventional journey for me, how to actually do that, how to express these stories in music and do that in an authentic way. So in 2015, I moved to Nashville to try to become discovered, to make it, as they say, as a lot of musicians say, and to kind of be a mainstream singer-songwriter or a pop artist, because I thought that if I could make my music known on a larger scale, like with a record company, by touring, then I could get my messages out there, and that would be the best way to promote these messages. But after a couple of years in the industry, I actually learned that my authenticity as a musician, it couldn't really truly shine in this mainstream music industry. In fact, it was difficult to kind of maintain that authenticity while trying to, so to speak, make it, or while trying to compete with other musicians. Um, so that's when I moved on and kind of went to making my own independent projects and trying to explore it through different mediums that didn't force me into kind of a pigeonhole of what the radio would
Mhm.
like to hear or what sells these days as a musician, because I realized that what I was writing wouldn't necessarily be what sells, but
Yeah.
I think it still is what is important for people to hear in music.
Mhm. Yeah, so going back to what you said about Vienna, I wonder what is it like in Berlin for your street music? How do people respond there?
Yeah, it's a great question because Berlin, if you know much about Berlin, it's actually an incredibly artistic city. It is a very expressive, very open-minded, very like just full of culture kind of city. It's full of history, it's full of a lot of creatives. But the really ironic part is that performing street music in Berlin is actually quite discouraging.
Hmm.
And I think the reason for this is because the city is so saturated with people on the streets playing all the time. It's almost like the idea of a street musician is watered down. It doesn't really mean much because it happens so often, because it happens so,
Oh, yeah.
and so this is why I found it to be really interesting that music had somehow, like people in Berlin, just people walking by and going about their daily routine, had almost kind of tuned out music to a degree, or they had become a little bit callous to it, just because it was always there all the time. So it does
Yeah.
kind of beg the question of like, how can we address this issue as musicians, and how can we kind of still honor like the sanctity of what it is as an art and expression, while still allowing everybody to share their art with the world.
Yeah. And how long have you been in Berlin?
Just over 1 year now.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's quite new.
Yeah. Um, Other question for you. With your other gigging, how have you networked with other musicians, or has it just been like you'll go perform and you'll connect with people that
Yeah.
way?
Yeah, I've been able to I mean, music I think is the number one way that I've been able to connect with anybody in the world, because it was just, you're a musician, I'm a musician, we're automatically just like joined in this huge passionate thing that we care about. In Nashville, it was pretty much always through songwriting, because Nashville really encourages the idea of co-writing with other people, and that was a really great experience of understanding how to kind of meld, like, when you're writing a song, how do you meld your vision of this story with somebody else who might have a different vision, or somebody else who has a different goal? Like, I wrote with a lot of songwriters in Nashville who were trying to write country music, or they were trying to write about a very specific topic in order to kind of fit this mold of what it takes to make it as a musician. And so I was really pushed and challenged to learn how to maintain that authenticity of my messages in my music, while still being open to collaboration and learning from how somebody else might approach songwriting and what kind of things they have to offer. I also collaborate. I collaborate as well. Like, these days, it's actually quite easy to collaborate like online and stuff. So I record music. My producer lives in Chicago, but I live in Berlin. He was my producer from Chicago, and we can still like, I'm like learning to record my own music so that we can record together, and he can mix and master it after the fact. There's been so much that has been brought into my life just by sheer like posting of random things on the internet, of my SoundCloud music, and I think it's really powerful.
So another question for you, because I am so saturated in specifically the classical music world, and I think to get into a professional symphony, it's audition based, you have a set repertoire, it's a lot of note reading, a lot of like the historical Western music style. I also do improvisation now, and I play with a few like bands once in a while. And I actually played with The Who once, which was super cool.
Oh, that's
But
incredible.
so from your perspective, I've not really talked to a lot of people who have been in Nashville pursuing singing, singer-songwriter, that path. So can you speak a little bit, because you also have a little bit of background in the classical orchestral world. How
Yeah.
do you see a difference? How do you see similarities? And this is a lot of questions. But in Nashville, did you, or do you now ever talk about like specific notes or chords, or like write out sheet music too? Those were a lot of questions.
Yeah, no, I understand the gist of your question though. I think there's a lot of similarities. I think that for me, actually, being able to come from a classical background, because I was also classically trained. Like you said, orchestra was my very first instrument, but then I was classically trained in piano as well, and then kind of moved into more of the pop scene when I started writing music. I think that as a musician, coming from a more structured world is much more helpful, is actually an awesome base to start your music career on. Like, to be able to know um, some technical musical knowledge to write down and transcribe music is really powerful. Like, for example, in college, I went to the University of Notre Dame, and I directed an a cappella group, and we wanted to kind of arrange these songs to sing in a way that they hadn't been arranged before. So because of that technical musical background, I was able to transpose the music through like a sheet music program where I could just transcribe
Cool.
the notes, write the parts, and then that kind
Yeah.
of a way for us to share this music with this, to share an arrangement that really had never been done before. So I think that there's definitely a huge connection there. And I think that a lot of pop artists do have that background. And even though they don't actually promote like classical music or like Baroque music of that genre, it's still really powerful to be able to have the structure behind your creativity, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when you're writing your music, I'm interested to know how you process. Do you write out lyrics first, or do you write a chord progression, or do you do them both at the same time?
It's a really common question, and I think that the answer is different for all songwriters. It seems like I hear a lot, because I like to listen to podcasts about songwriters that I admire, and people always do it differently. For me, it actually starts with a concept, if that makes sense. So, for example, I was inspired to write this song called Trash My List. It's a song about falling in love with somebody that doesn't meet any of the criteria on your list. So somebody who is not somebody you pictured that you would fall in love with. And this was inspired by my sister, who actually was like fell in love with somebody that she didn't initially expect to ever fall in love with. And so the concept of that, of trashing a list, was in my head for a little bit of time. And I thought I really want to be able to translate this into a song that not only tells this story, but also like has the correct aura and atmosphere and mood to communicate, like, do I want this message to be something that is fun and lighthearted and something you can dance to? So it starts really with a concept, then building around it, kind of like, what is the mood that I want to convey with this message? And then on top of, then I sit down, and usually the music, the melody comes around the same time as the words. So I might have like this mantra in my head, like what I think the hook line would be. And then I sing it to myself, or sometimes I'm like in the shower and it just comes to me through inspiration.
Cool. My next question for you was a favorite project that you are working on or have worked on.
Yeah. So I have an answer for both of those, because they're both kind of different answers. One of the projects that I am working on right now that I'm really excited about is I'm writing and recording an album about that tells the stories of people who have been victims of sexual violence. And I know it's like a really heavy topic to bring up, but it is something that I'm passionate about, because I know quite a few people in my life who have been affected by this issue. And what I've learned is that it is like one of the most misunderstood issues in the world, I think, because when you don't know somebody who's been there, or when you haven't been there yourself, it's really kind of hard to empathize. Like, what does that look like? So I wanted to use music to like share the stories of these people in a way that they may never be able to share these stories. And the idea isn't just to bring awareness and light to the topic of sexual abuse in general, but specifically to highlight what is it like to be in the shoes of a victim? What is it like what goes through their heads and their hearts when, and informs their decision making after an incident might happen? Why did they decide not to tell anybody? Like, how does this manifest itself in your life later on? These are things that I think are very misunderstood in the world, and they lead to a lot of unfairness and injustice around this issue. So music to me is such a powerful medium where we can use it to get the world to listen to something that they may not listen to if it's in a book or a speech or a talk or something. Music,
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that I can use music as an instrument, as a tool to kind of fill this gap in understanding and this gap in knowledge that we have in this world, and help improve, lift up the world and improve it in an area where I think there's a huge gap right now. And hopefully in a way that in a medium that really just naturally connects people.
So that's something you're currently working on.
Yeah, this is something that's in the works right now. With me, I'm writing the music and then recording with my producer as well.
Very exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's really cool that you're working on that. I agree that that's an issue that we need to have more conversations about.
Yeah, and luckily for me, the way has already been paved by a lot of people coming out, Me Too generation, but music is an area where I think we could definitely address it a little bit more. In terms of a past project that I've worked on that I do want to share, it's not relevant to my music specifically, but relevant to the music kind of music as a whole, as an art. So when I lived in Chicago, I would host these nights called like Nights of Art and Music. And it essentially, I would invite artists of all types, so photographers, musicians, poets, painters, to my apartment to share their art with others. And then I would also invite people to just be the audience, anybody who wanted to join. And this event was specifically tailored to people who don't often share their gifts. So people who maybe lack the confidence to be vulnerable in this way, who've never really expressed and shared their art with other people. And the idea behind this was that that I believe that art and music are meant to be shared. I believe that people who have these gifts, they should have a space that they can share them. Whether it's on a small scale and just their family, or on a large scale, you know, through social media. And I think that it was really incredibly moving to have these events, these series of events, and see just like how there are so many thirsty people who have these things that they want to share, but they don't really know how, and they've never really been told, like, this is something that's important that people need to hear or need to see. And I know for me it was really impactful because the first person I ever shared my own song with, my own original song, was my piano teacher in high school. And if not, so she heard this song and she was like, hey, I just want you to know, I think you're really talented, and I think a lot of people would love to hear this music. And it was really simple, you know, it was just a commentary on her part, but if not for these words of encouragement from her, I never would have gone and moved forward with music. Because I didn't really have anybody who'd ever told me, like, you have this music, this gift, and you should share it. So this is why it's such an important thing, I think, in general, for us to encourage each other as artists to pursue and share our music, even if it's only with a few people. Music should be kept in a closet, you know, it should be used to express a story, to connect with each other, to promote these messages, and just to bring people together and make the world more enriched.
I agree. I agree. Well said.
Thank you. This is why I was so excited. I'm so excited about what you're doing, Larissa, with your channel and with your cute live Q&As, like kind of taking all these different angles and like promoting and putting in its proper place that music is something that needs to be
Yeah.
promoted and appreciated.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I just have so many friends and colleagues who are involved in different areas within the arts. And I think it's so amazing how people are gifted differently and how we can come together and learn from each other and collaborate and talk about different art forms. And I'm hoping too that I get to interview some visual artists and some dancers soon. So I'm reaching out to other people. But if you
That's
know of
awesome.
anyone, or if you're watching and you want to be on the live Q&A, let me know.
I actually have a question for you, Larissa. Back to your question about the connection between like classical music and pop music. Um, have you seen examples of this like kind of cross collaboration across industries, and what are your favorite examples of this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the first thing that came to mind was actually, have you heard of the Clean Bandits?
Yes, yeah, I have.
So they have a violinist in their group who is the sister of Nicola Benedetti, who's a classical concert violinist.
Oh,
And I can just hear in their music that violinist technique. I think it comes from her classical training, just like the way that she's playing her scales and like runs and stuff, but
mhm.
incorporating it into pop, into like the pop beats. And I love that. I love it.
Yeah, I think
Um,
it's interesting. Hmm.
yeah, and I mean, I myself, like I was saying earlier, I have branched out quite a bit from just playing classical, and I've played jazz now, and I play in, worship bands, and I'm just improvising. I'm not playing off of, music. I'm just like creating from my heart and like on the spot. And it's been so fun to do that as a form of expression. And another thing that came to mind was, I think maybe 10 years ago, the Chicago Symphony worked with Metallica,
Oh, awesome.
I
I didn't know that, but it sounds wonderful.
or some other rock band. Um, and there's an album out. I haven't listened to it, but I think that's really cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's so cool to see these connections in music. And it kind of like there are pop songs, I can't remember, but there's a song that uses Beethoven's Symphony 12, I think, and it's a pop song, and it just plays his hook over and over again. And it's so
Oh,
cool, the
really?
idea of using today's music to like keep the musicians of our history alive. I think it's Beethoven's Symphony Number 12. I'll track it down and send it to you. But yeah,
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
this bridge that is being created is a really incredible way to promote each other's music and to kind of get to that next level of creativity.
Hmm. I agree. Yeah. So I'm trying to see if anyone sent us any questions. Did anyone send you any questions?
Not personally, but I think somebody had commented on the post that you made. There's a question.
Yes. My friend Josh did. You would really like Josh, by the way. He's very talented.
Yeah, we're following each other on Instagram now after I saw his comment.
Connections. Okay,
Connection. It's
let's.
awesome.
I know you answered this question, but just in case, because I'm going to post this on YouTube too. So some people don't follow me on Instagram. So he asked you, what is your favorite place to write and your favorite step in the recording process?
So my favorite place to write is definitely somewhere where I can be alone, where there's a lot of quiet and solitude, probably a peaceful place. Um, to me, the place doesn't matter as much as just the sheer act of solitude, because I actually prefer, like I had referred to songwriting, co-writing before. I actually really prefer to write solo. I just think I don't know why. It's just some people are really good at co-writing, and I'm not one of those people. I just
Yeah.
always have a really vision for the message that I want to craft, and it gets a little bit distracted when there's somebody else in the picture. So as long as I can have like my guitar, or my piano, or my ukulele or something, and then go into a quiet space, that's where my favorite place to write is. Preferably like a corner room or something like that.
Hmm. Hannah's just asked a question.
Oh,
She
Hannah.
asks, how do you fit your passion with music into your day job and how do they interact with each other?
That's a great question. It's kind of difficult to answer because my job is seems very far removed from my music. I work in tech, like as a developer, and um, I would say that, let me think about this. It's kind of a stumper. I've never really connected those two pieces before. I would say that in my daily job, like initiation is really important. So I mean, like inspiration, being proactive. I think in general in my career, as a businesswoman and in a tech company is important, and being kind of unafraid, being a little bit fearless when it comes to trying something new, when it comes to thinking of things in a different way. So like with my current job, I'm an architect, an artificial intelligence architect. So that requires me to think about outside of the box ways to automate processes, make them more efficient. But taking these approaches that are unique and that kind of step outside of the box in the way things are normally done is something I very much do in my career as a songwriter as well and as a musician. For example, with this project of writing this album about writing this album to promote awareness around sexual violence. This is something that I don't, I mean, I haven't done a lot of research, but I don't think this exact like project has been done before, specifically telling the stories of victims. And the only reason this came about is because I was trying to think of a way that I could channel both my passion for this cause, for helping further this cause, along with what am I most gifted at? Like, what is it that I have specifically that a lot of other people don't have? And the thing that
Yeah.
stood out that I kind of put in my list was like being able to take a story, like take emotions, an emotional story, and translate it into a song. Like how do I and I didn't really even realize it was something that I did well until my producer mentioned like this is something I work with a lot of songwriters and this is something that is a gift that you have. So I had written that down and realized that if I do have this ability to translate somebody's story that's a very emotional story into a song, and there's so many stories that need to be told, and that need to be heard through the medium of music, and it can be an incredibly powerful tool to put a message out there. There are definitely artists who have already done a little bit of this, like Lady Gaga has a song, "You Don't Know What It's Like," I think is what it's called, and she kind of think she performed at the Grammys, and she had like all these people who were affected by the issue come up on stage with her and perform and like sing it with her. So that kind of thing is really powerful, and it's stuck with me, and I hope that it stuck with other people. Sorry, I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but essentially the answer to Hannah's question, thanks Hannah for your question, was specifically like thinking a little bit outside the box and being a little bit daring with the things that I'm willing to try with music.
Mm-hmm. Something similar in a way. I wonder, do you ever listen to music as you're working your full-time job?
You know, I do, but the only music I can listen to while multitasking is classical music. So going back to your strength, Larissa, classical music, it just gives me, it puts me in a concentration mood, and I don't know, music is so. Thanks, Hannah. Hannah mentioned that she loves a tangent. Um, I don't know. For me, music, it just requires that I devote such full attention to it. Like especially like I'm very lyrically oriented. So when it comes to listening to like a good song, I just have to sit down and
Mm-hmm.
like quiet all other distractions, just listen to it, and appreciate everything about it, the production, the mixing and recording that went into it, the melody, the vocals. Like, um, not that classical music doesn't also deserve that exact attention to detail, but because I usually listen to like the same symphonies that I like over and over again at work, just to keep me concentrated.
Yeah, very interesting. Um, That's another question for you. Oh, what kind of guitar do you play on?
So I play a Big Baby Taylor Swift Taylor acoustic guitar.
Okay.
It's just a classic acoustic guitar.
Hmm.
And then I branched into like ukulele a little bit later. And usually when I record in the studio, I actually use the guitar of my producer because his has a better sound.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I would say my strength was never specifically in like guitar soloing or anything like that. It was more in piano and then songwriting and vocals.
Hmm.
Guitars, but I have to say guitar is much more convenient to like take on trips than pianos are. So I had to
Yes,
find a
very
way to
true.
adapt.
Very true. All right. Well, we are approaching our time limit, and I want to respect your time. But do you want to say anything else about the importance of the arts or how people can find your music? And if you want to answer this, Jordan just asked a question as well. And now you paused. Oh, you're
Oh
frozen.
yes, I see. There's another question that's been asked. Should I address that one first, or
If you want to. If you have to go though, I totally respect that. But now you're frozen again. Oh no.
hold on? Let me just find a better. Let me just find a stronger connection.
It's
Text.
good now. You're oh,
Maybe this corner
frozen
is
again.
better. Is this any better? Nope, this is worse. Okay, one moment.
That's good. You're not
Is
you're
this
not
better?
you're not pixelated. Oh, I spoke too soon.
It looks like I might have 3 bars now. Is this any better?
Okay, so Jordan asked, can you describe the music scene in Berlin? Do you get to play a lot of gigs with your day job? And I assume that means apart from your day job, do you have time to play other gigs?
Okay. I can hear you now, Larissa. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I'll address, is it Jordan's
Hmm.
question first? Can you describe the music scene in Berlin? Do you get to play a lot of gigs with your day job? Um, the music scene in Berlin, it's really interesting. It's such a hogwash of so many different genres of music, that it's only been a year that I've been there.
Hmm.
But to be honest, I haven't really found like that niche that is specifically on the same wavelength as me. There's a lot of like Middle Eastern music. There's a lot of people playing
Oh,
instruments
wow.
yeah, there's a lot of Middle Eastern immigrants and people who have come to Berlin and live there now. So it's super interesting to hear. They have a lot of what they call just open jams, where you'll go to a neighborhood and then people just bring an instrument and just play.
Hmm.
And to me, it's actually quite intimidating because I don't know anything about Middle Eastern music or Arabic music. And there's a lot of Arabic and Middle Eastern music that's played in Berlin. And these people, they're so incredible. They'll just come up there and they will improvise like a solo, and a singer, maybe a jazz singer, whatever kind of singer, will go up there and just start scatting or doing something incredible. And improvising, kind of like you said you do, Larissa. So this is something that I don't have the ability to do, but it's really incredible to witness and to be able to appreciate this music in a different way that I've seen it before. Um, with my day job, I haven't played a ton of like official gigs in Berlin right now. At least right now, I'm focusing a little bit more on recording and getting my album out there, so that when I start playing gigs again, I can really promote the new music that I've written recently. Um, but like I said, the performance aspect of it is mostly street music, so busking, which I think is a really awesome way to perform, and also Leipzig is a city about an hour outside of Berlin that my boyfriend lives in, and it's a very creative place. They have actually this night called like street musicians. So like they invite people who generally play like frequently and often on the streets to like come and perform every Monday night and just like share their gifts and their.
Yeah. Uh, Holland, Michigan does that in the summers too, which is really fun.
Oh, awesome.
Hmm.
Yes, I love this. I love this idea of just like pulling people in and like promoting their art and putting it
Hmm.
in a place that can be heard.
Hmm.
Sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so my last question for you was, can you talk about why you think art is so important? And I know you talked a little bit about that. And then maybe to just close, how people can find you and your music.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so art, and I'm putting music under the umbrella of art here, art in general, whatever it be, photography, art, music, paintings, poetry, whatever it is, I think is really, really, really important, because these gifts that we have, it is inherently, I think, when you are an artist, it's a gift that is meant to be shared. It's meant to be expressed. It's an expression that it plays an important role in the world, I think, because music has such a role of connecting people. And specifically, like, I like the idea that when you tell a story through a piece of art, it is something that touches, that may tell somebody else like they're not alone. You might write a song or paint a picture of a scene that connects with somebody in a way that tells them, hey, like, I've dealt with this issue before as well. This is how I feel. This is what these emotions look like, manifested in a piece of art. And this way of connection, I think, is such an enriching part of life. Like, you see how art has played a role, and art that's hundreds of years old still is super impactful to the world today. That music, and there are certain songs that have been so impactful in my life, inspiring me as an artist and as a person in general, um, that I think um, music is specifically, I'm talking to music because I'm a musician, I'm not a painter, but um, as we've discussed, Larissa, music is one of those mediums that is so incredibly powerful because it just gets people to listen. It's something that touches the hearts of so many people, whether you are like an avid music fan or not. When there is a compelling song that has a compelling message, it's hard to ignore. And in this way, I think this is how I hope to use it as an instrument, but this is how I also hope to encourage everybody out there who, whatever kind of art it is that you create and produce, just know that it is meaningful and that there is a space in the world for it to be heard. And don't allow kind of any kind of fear to stop you from sharing this with somebody, even if it means like starting with your family or your closest friends. Like, this is something that should be put out into the world, and don't be afraid to tap into that art that you have in your heart or whatever, sitting in your room, because I'm sure there's somebody else out there who would love to hear it. I would love to hear it. If you have something, you can DM me on Instagram and send it to me as a first draft.
Yeah, that was great.
Oh, and for my music, sorry, my music is on SoundCloud, so it's in the biography that Larissa posted on her Instagram, and it's just soundcloud.com/Amanda Lee Music. So you can find all of my new postings there. Currently producing a new album right now that hopefully will be released this year. So stay tuned for that.
That's
And
super exciting. If you ever need a violinist, I can send you some tracks.
yes, oh my gosh, that'd be
Lay it
awesome.
down.
I can't think of a better violinist that I would like to have in my music than Larissa. It would be awesome.
Well, that's awesome. I'm so excited about everything that you're doing, and I love how driven and passionate you are. And I even remember that from, just middle school, high school. I think you've always, and it's so awesome to see all the things that you've been up to. And yeah, I'm excited to see this new album you're creating. Um, and thank you so much for doing this Q&A today. I think it's been really, really good.
Yeah, thank you so much, Larissa, for reaching out. This is awesome. I can't say enough about how excited I am that there are people like you in the world promoting the arts. I'm so happy to like partner in this with you. So this is
Yeah.
awesome. And yeah, hopefully we can connect on maybe a future music project.
Yes, that would be amazing. All right.
Awesome.
I'll let you go. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you. You too. Stay safe.
You too. Bye.